Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. We will have a lot to talk about. We will talk about the latest with Garnacho, Rashford, Xerxes, what Paul Scholes said, all sorts to get into. Sorry I haven't been with you today, I've been busy, but I mean this news in the last half an hour has taken my breath away. I'm very sad to be reacting to the passing of an absolute legend of Manchester United, the original king. Denis Law. It's been announced in the last half an hour that he's passed away at 84 years of age, and I think there will be people out there that don't understand the enormity of this, and there's no issue with that. You know, younger people, they might know, they might not. But for those of us, well, look, for people like Ricky and older fans who remember him playing, they'll be devastated. Denis Law is the last of the trilogy. They're all up there now, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe it. I mean, I remember a time when that statue was there and they were all still here. Best, Law and Charlton. And it's the passing of time and this happens. And, you know, Denis was 84. It's still hard, though. It's still really hard because this is why I don't want to make this political or anything like that, but I'm just going to speak from the heart. This is why I get so agitated and angry and frustrated with the Glazers and the way the football club is run. Because forget about the debt or anything, this football club, more than any football club as far as I'm concerned, actually stands for something. We have the Busby Babes, we have what Sir Alex Ferguson did, but we also have the trinity of Law, Charlton and Best who rebuilt this football club, epitomised by the 68 final that he didn't play in because he had a knee injury. But he was part of that. And this is who we are. This is our history. And it's a sad, sad night for Manchester United fans because, yes, the club's in a mess at the moment, but it also reminds us very, very starkly and harshly just how far the club has fallen away from the ideals of that time and what Denis Law was and the quality and the personality. And the thing is, for me, it's really difficult because my granddad passed a few years ago, and as many of you know, he's the reason I support Manchester United. I'm from Nottingham, not from Manchester, and he was in love with Duncan Edwards and the Busby Babes and this amazing young team, and that stuck with him forever. But he always spoke glowingly about Denis Law and massively loved that Manchester United side. And I grew up with those VHS videos, and in the 80s, when I'm growing up watching those videos, Denis Law would have been, what, in his 40s, 50s? Very charismatic man, always had a smile on his face, always a joker. Just a really warm, funny footballer, pundit, whatever. And I'll always remember that growing up because I think many people of my age remember Denis Law speaking a lot about Manchester United. Very, very authoritative, very, very personable, and totally understood what Manchester United was all about. And I know this happens. The older we all get, the more our heroes start passing. That's the way it is. But what a life, hey! And he will never be forgotten. An absolute legend of this football club, and I'm sad to be reacting to it tonight. And it does make my mind wander to Sir Bobby, George Best, and the reason I support this football club. To be honest, you know, it's it's a sad, sad thing. And I hope, actually, you know, I used to work with somebody on the United Stand who didn't really know anything about Munich. And then when we first covered it, he couldn't believe the story. And I hope a lot of people there tonight and over the next few days go and have a find out about Denis Law if you don't know anything about him and you are a United fan, because, God, you're in for a treat. What a man, what a story. Absolute legend of the club. Rest in peace, Denis, and say hello to Bobby and George while you're there. And if you've got time, have a word with my granddad. Lovely, absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling sad about it too as well. But look, hopefully they're all, as I said, wouldn't it be fantastic and lovely if they're all reunited again together, waiting for him? Yeah, what a club. You know what? As sad as it is, what a club we support. No one can ever take that away. The Glazers can do what they want, and Sir Jim can do what he wants, but they'll never take away what this football club is all about. Sid says, the Holy Trinity now rests. Life itself is a temporary arrangement. Yes. 46 goals in a season on those pitches with those defenders ready to do anything to stop you is nothing short of spectacular. Rest in peace, Mr. Law. You are a legend, says Double D. And Alan Noonan says, rest in peace, the legend Denis Law. My condolences to his family and friends. Exactly. And United Trinity is together again. Hopefully we can pull one out for them on Sunday, says Sean. Makes me think United as a whole, Sir Alex, says me. Okay, thank you very much for that, me gooch. I mean, look, hopefully Man United can win on Sunday. We lost in a tribute game to the Busby Babes when we wore that kit, didn't we, a few years ago? So, I mean, I wouldn't put anything past this current United side to not be able to turn it on. But and when I say current side, I mean the Man United side of the last few years. But look, rest in peace, Denis Law. Let's talk about the latest news. I've got to be honest, I was actually quite looking forward to the show tonight. I do feel like I've had the air taken away a little bit, but there's a lot to discuss around Manchester United, and I suppose it's a stark reminder, like I said, of the realities of what we are at the moment compared to what we were. And I mean, I wonder actually if we will ever see those times again where we look back in 50 years on legends like we do Denis Law, Sir Bobby, George Best, the Busby Babes. You know, I wonder if we'll ever do that again, because listening to Ruben Amorim after the game yesterday, I think he emphasises exactly what many of us feel. It's not, I mean, I loved what he said to Paul Scholes when Paul Scholes was basically saying it's a lack of effort, a mentality thing. And he said, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a lack of enthusiasm. I think it's a culmination of, you know what I think? I think, you know what Amorim was saying? I think he was saying it's a lack of quality. To me, it's just an absolute lack of quality. When I look at Manchester United, I actually don't think we've got that many players better than Fulham, better than Brighton, better than Brentford. And I think that's the reality. I think Manchester United, Denis Law, Sir Bobby Charlton, George Best, oh yeah, great club, massive club, brilliant club, should be wiping the floor with Brentford and Fulham. But the actual roster, I'm not so sure. I don't see the quality. I really don't. I don't think we strike fear into teams because we haven't got the Kevin De Bruynes. We haven't got the Declan Rice. We haven't got the Saliba. We haven't got the Saka. We haven't got the Haaland. We haven't got these players. And everybody fancies their chance. That's what happens. Anyway, look, let's get into the news. There's a lot going on about a lot of things with transfers. I mean, it feels like the AC Milan Rashford move is off. They've gone back for Kyle Walker again, apparently. What we're hearing is what I was talking about a couple of days ago, is that Rashford is holding out for Barcelona, which I think is a really dangerous thing to do. I mean, I don't know, but if this goes wrong, I will say what I've said before. I don't think the people around Rashford are as good as they think they are. This is a January transfer window. You don't have a lot of time, and Barcelona are struggling to register players that they've already bought. Would I be risking the last 2 weeks of this window on waiting on Barcelona? I think the most important thing, mate, is get yourself a fucking team for the next 3 months and start playing football. I guess we'll have to wait and see what's happening with that. I mean, surely he's going to leave. What's going to happen about it, I don't know. Let's talk about Garnacho, though, because this situation is really interesting. And I spend a lot of my time taking the piss out of the Manchester Evening News, and I sometimes question why they're allowed access to press conferences, considering how toxic they are. But it is quite interesting what they were reporting about Garnacho today, because there's been some conflicting things. And the one thing I will always be is fair. You know, whether it's a player I think's not good enough, if they have a good game, I'll say it. Whether it's a player I like has a bad game, I'll say it. As I did last night with Rasmus, and I will keep doing that. And this story I read in the Manchester Evening News today is exactly what I've been saying for a few days now, and it's exactly what I've been hearing. It's really funny because last night there was people talking about the Garnacho situation, saying that the club absolutely are not pushing a transfer for Garnacho. They're not pushing him out the door. And I go back to what David Ornstein said a week ago. Manchester United would reluctantly listen to offers for Garnacho and Mainu because of things like FFP and PSR. It would take a big bid, but that's the situation. I then saw something today that I think even David Ornstein said it. Man United are not actively looking to sell Garnacho. And I'm like, well, you can't have one and then not the other. Like, do they take us for being stupid? Manchester United are pushing Garnacho out the door. That's what's happening. Or anybody else they can get money for. The bottom line is, Man United have got no money. I don't know why Amrim took the job, actually. I don't know if he's been lied to. We've got no money. That's the bottom line. The reason they keep talking about PSR and FFP is because they're going to sell somebody. I disagree that we haven't got any money, by the way, but that's a different conversation. I think there are ways that Man United can get money into that football club, numerous ways they can get money into that football club without selling a homegrown player. But the reality is, they are actively looking to sell Garnacho. What they're trying to do is make out they're not, but do it. And to me, that's just cowardly. I know for a fact, and it even says it in the Manchester Evening News, that Garnacho is not pushing to leave Man United. All this talk about personal terms agreed and he wants to go, it's a load of nonsense. It's Man United who put players up for sale. Last summer, Garnacho, Rasmus, Mainu were not for sale. And now, suddenly in January, well, reluctantly they are. What does that even mean? I had somebody coming at me last night on social media saying, yeah, you know, anybody who's saying that Man United are actively trying to sell these players don't know what they're on about. Hold on a minute. We do know what we're on about because we didn't fall off a bloody Christmas tree. What the situation is that if you've got Saka in your team, you don't put stories out to David Ornstein that you'd reluctantly sell him. You just don't say a fucking word. So why are Man United putting stories out to David Ornstein that they would reluctantly sell Garnacho if they got a big offer? Because basically they're on a night out and they're flirting at the bar. Who's going to buy me a drink? I am married, but if someone wants to buy me a drink and they're good looking, hey ho, here we go. The chuff's coming out. And I'm like, or might not be a chuff. Actually, let's not be sexist. It could be a man. Anyway, look, stop digging. The point is, I can't believe how naive some people are because that I've literally seen people I actually think are quite intelligent going, Man United aren't actively trying to sell Garnacho. They're not. I'm like, hold on a minute. As I said before, if they weren't actively trying to sell Garnacho or Mainu or anybody else, why aren't they keeping their mouth shut? Like Man City are keeping their mouth shut about Phil Foden. Or Newcastle are keeping their mouth shut about Anthony Gordon. Or Aston Villa are keeping their mouth shut about John McGinn. Then they're not for sale. And Villa don't need to say anything. So why did Man United put a story out saying, reluctantly, we would listen to offers for Garnacho, but they'd have to be really big? Because they're putting him up for sale. They're basically saying he's up for sale, but only for a big price. Why are they doing that? Because they're desperate for money. They want to get money into the football club. They've seen what Chelsea did with Conor Gallagher and they want a piece of the action. They want money into the football club from a homegrown player. That's what's going on. And I don't know why people can't acknowledge it and accept it because it's staring you in the bloody face. If I'm an owner of a football club and I've got a player that I don't want to sell, I just don't say anything. I say nothing. But if I'm an owner of a football club and I would sell a player if the money came in, I'll go, hey, I don't want to sell him, but if anyone wants to make an offer, you know, it's like being married, isn't it? I don't want to have an affair. Well, why are you putting makeup on and going outside, John? Why are you going down to the local nightclub with makeup on? You know, stay in and watch Netflix. Yellowstone's on. Yeah, if you're happily married, you're not heading out dressed up. And that's what Man United are doing. They're basically saying, hey, we don't want to sell these players, but hey, if you want to make an offer, maybe we will. And that's what's going on. Do I think Garnacho's going to leave? Look, there's no smoke without fire. He's being pushed towards the door. I think the saving grace here is, and I've heard a lot of stuff today about him agreeing terms, etc., which he hasn't. The big thing here is it all comes down to the price. I think if you're interested in this story at the moment, it's very much like being in a washing machine. There's a lot of spin going on. And what effectively is happening here is, I mean, look, we had Gary Neville the other day saying, I think Amrim wants to sell him. The very next day, Amrim said, I don't want to sell him. So maybe Gary's had a little bit of a nudge from someone at the club to say, you know, I think what United are trying to do is they're trying to sell him, but not get the blame for it. So we're getting stuff about Garnacho wants to go, which isn't true. We're getting stuff about Amrim wants to sell him, which isn't true unless he's lying in press conferences. We're getting stuff about, you know, they're not trying to sell him, but we've put an article out there saying we are. I think this is just a spin. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. Man United can't come out and say they want to sell any player because it knocks their price down. But look at what Napoli have offered. It's not even 40 million quid. So for me, I think this is not going to happen. But you do worry about the damage it's doing to the dressing room and to that particular player and any other player when realistically you probably just want to focus on your game and a new manager and a club that's in crisis. But actually you're having to field, numerous things. And look, let's be honest, the Napoli offer is fair in the sense that United have basically said, make us an offer on any of our players. And Napoli have gone, hey, I mean, if I don't blame Napoli. If I was Napoli, I'd offer 40 million. Because the way United are behaving, it looks like they're desperate. Oh, yeah, we reluctantly listen to offers, but they better be big. I mean, I'd be going, well, I'll give you 40 million for Garnacho then. Oh, no, we want 70. Well, fuck off. I'm not going to pay that. But so I don't blame Napoli going in low. The big focus point here is how low will Man United go to take this money? And I mean, as I've said before, it's very simple. You've got a 20-year-old that has got a lot of goals and a lot of assists in the last 2 years, that is talented, and is therefore, in the modern market, worth in excess of 60 million. I mean, as I said, he's a talented player, and he's only 20. And we paid £55 million for Mason Mount with 1 year left on his contract, and he had injury problems. So it's 60 million for me. I wouldn't do the deal, but it's 60 million or nothing. Nadim says, how low would you go? I mean, I wouldn't even want to take 60, to be honest. I think it's a bad thing to do. But look, shout somebody out. Owen Hargreaves said this, and it's more or less what I and some of you were saying. He said it the other night, and, I'll shout him out for it because I completely agree, and I've said it myself. He basically said, forget Garnacho, forget Conor Gallagher, forget any of this. What is football doing rewarding clubs selling young homegrown players? You think about the history of football. You think about the Busby Babes. You think about the class of 92. And I know that's very Man United centric, but this is the United stand. There will be other options. Look at the Busby Babes. Look at the class of 92. They are the two most, spoken words probably in Man United's history. Up there with George Best, Denis Law, Sir Bobby Charlton, Sir Matt Busby, and a few others. But Busby Babes, class of 92, everybody knows what they are. It's Manchester United, and it's youth. It's homegrown. So what does the Premier League decide to do? We're gonna mess around with financial fair play rules, and we're gonna make it more advantageous for clubs to sell their young homegrown players. Effectively putting a pin in the past and popping it, because it doesn't make sense. And Owen Hargreaves was saying this, and he's absolutely spot on. You have the class of 92, you have the Busby Babes, but then the current transfer rules reward clubs for selling those players. The equivalent of what we're facing is that if Man United were in trouble with the class of 92, you'd be looking at Scholes, Butt, Beckham, Giggs, and selling them over shit players that you've bought or players that are, coming towards the end of their careers. It's wrong. It's really, really wrong. But hopefully it won't happen. But as I say, it was very obvious to me that, well, Amrim said it after the game, didn't he? I had a quick 5-minute chat with Sir Jim Radcliffe, and it was an easier chat to have when we won the game. And I think we all know what that chat was. We're not good enough. You've brought me in. I mean, look, this is what I would say, and I'm pretty sure Amrim said it. I would say, look, my CV speaks for itself. I did very well at Sporting. I built an amazing team. We proved that not just against Man City a few months ago, but for the last couple of years. I won things there. We were a fantastic side. You begged me to take this job. You wouldn't let me take it in the summer. You said you wanted me now. I'm here. This team's not good enough. When are you going to give me the tools to do it? And that would be it. And what does Sir Jim say to that? Well, Ruben, it's multi-layered. You're not looking at the pie. There's a big pie here, and you're just looking at it in one piece. And the pie is a big pie, and you're looking at it through a hole, and you need to open up and look at it because And then Ruben says, yeah, you're talking out of a hole. You're talking out of your arsehole, Sir Jim. You don't know what you're on about. And I think that's sort of where we are. And I'm pretty sure Amrim's had that conversation, because universally, we can all individualise it and we can all blame Casemiro and Rashford and everybody else. But the bottom line is, bring Rashford and Casemiro back, they're not good enough, and the squad's not good enough. The bottom line is, the whole squad's not good enough. There are players that can get better, of course, but as a collective, if I look at the Liverpool squad and don't talk about Salah or Trent and look at it as a squad, as the whole pie, that is a title-winning team. I look at the Arsenal squad, that is a title-challenging squad. I look at Man City, they fell off big time, but it is a title-challenging squad. I look at Newcastle, that is a top 5 challenging squad. I look at Man United's squad, and I genuinely think that I don't believe, although I did at the start of the season, I don't believe that's a top 6 squad anymore. I really don't. I think it's been undone so many times in the last 18 months. And I know we've added some new players, but I'm absolutely adamant that that is not a top 6 squad. And I think that I was asked to do a little clip for another YouTube channel today, and it was basically where you think Man United will finish with your head and where you think Man United will finish with your heart. Well, where do you think it's going to finish with your head and your heart? My heart, I would love us to get top 6. My head, I don't think we'll finish above 9th. And that's because my head is saying we're not better than 9th. That takes some saying to say that, but I genuinely do not think we're that good. And I don't want it to be true, because I want to like a lot of these players, but I think a lot of them can get better. But as a squad, it ain't working. It just isn't. No team leaks for 5 games. I wonder who it was, says Matt. Our young players should never be up for sale. Supported United from 77. Our history isn't up for sale, says Michael JW. Where's your thumb being, Marky? Oh, mate, I mean, you will not believe it. I got some new knives for Christmas because our old ones were rubbish. It's one of these ninja knife sets, and you can actually sharpen them. But I hadn't used this particular knife. It's Friday night. I'm making sweet potato fries, which I've done many times. I'm slicing through, and I literally took, I would say, I don't want to be dramatic and say I took the top off, but I did take part of the top of my thumb off. Like, literally came off. Not only a tiny slither, but the whole, like, you know, like your fingerprints and everything like that, it's gone. And it didn't bleed for about a minute, so I knew I was in trouble. I haven't looked at it for a while, but yeah. A&E's for wimps. No, seriously, go to A&E if you need to. We wanted the Qatari, but ended up with Scrooge McRatcliffe, says Mr. Arnold. I rather we don't buy anyone as opposed to sell players like Garnacho and Mainu. Now we'll get better after selling them. No way we'll get better after selling them, says Shahin. And if we sell Mainu or Garnacho, I'd be upset. But if we sell either to Chelsea and for the less than 100 million, I'll be getting a pitchfork out. Yes, Josh. Couple of themes there. It's a Friday night, so we'll do that. The Chelsea links to Garnacho are hilarious. Chelsea fans were going mad. They don't want him. What does that mean for Sancho? How many wingers do they want? We can't sell him to Chelsea. We can't do that. But I don't begrudge Chelsea for trying. I mean, genuinely, I'm surprised a few other Premier League clubs haven't come in. I think in the right team, he's a decent. I still think he's a decent player. It's interesting how you mentioned Mainu though, because did you hear what Paul Scholes said? He said that I don't mind Garnacho going, but if we get rid of Scholes, I'll be angry or something like that. It was words to that effect. Garnacho can go, but if Mainu goes, I'll be furious. And I thought, hold on a minute. I mean, Scholes is a legend, but like any ex-player, his opinions need to be scrutinised because I don't think they're any better than anybody else's. It's just a fan talking about Man United. And I was a bit angry with that, to be honest, because I thought, hold on a minute. Garnacho and Mainu. Like, why is Mainu better than Garnacho? Is it because of the passport? I mean, I like Mainu. I like them both. I'll be fuming if either of them go. But why? There's only a year in between them in age. Why is it okay to get rid of Garnacho, but it's not okay to get rid of Mainu? I don't really see that. if we're being honest, Mainoo's not been that good this season. I think he's been overplayed. I think this is a big point as well. I think that when you look at someone like Rasmus and the amount of games he's played, Law, Mainoo, Garnacho, I think all of them played summer tournaments as well. You do realise when I'm actually surprised Paul Scholes or Nicky Butt hasn't said this, or Ryan Giggs, because they should know. I mean, this is the sort of stuff, you know, like when Ben Foster was saying that it's brilliant that Amorim is making the injured players go, because if you are injured, you wave goodbye to everybody on Friday, you've got the weekend off. You know, actually being injured can be quite comfortable if you're not that interested. That's the sort of insight I want from an ex-player. You know, if Ben Foster says to me, I don't rate Garnacho and I rate Mainoo, I'll have an argument, because I'll be like, well, I rate them both. You being an ex-player doesn't really mean anything to me. But you telling me how it works with injuries, I can't talk about that. You've played the game. I like that. I would like to see Paul Scholes or Nicky Butt or Gary Neville actually do something I'm going to do now. Why have they not hit upon the fact that we might have an issue with some of our younger players because they are massively overplayed? We did this to Rashford and Martial. And I've never heard anybody talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it now. And I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. Garnacho's played loads of games in the last 18 months. Bloody loads. He's never injured. He always plays. Rasmus has played a lot of football. Law has played a lot of football. Mainoo's played a lot of football. And there are others. I mean, to be fair, Law is more mid-20s, so maybe you could take him out of it. But let's say Mainoo, Garnacho, Rasmus, and there might be a couple of others, I can't think, who are under 23 who have played a shitload of football. Now, Mainoo's 18-19 in that time. Garnacho's 19-20 in that time. And Rasmus is 20-21 in that time. You go back, Ahmad's another one as well. You go back to, although he didn't play that much under Ten Hag, did he, to be fair? On a reel, though, how the bloody hell did Ten Hag win trophies with his squad? Anyway, that's another one. Go back to that. So you've got Mainoo playing all these games between the age of 18, 19, Garnacho playing all these games between the age of 19 and 20, and Rasmus doing it between the age of 20 and 21. Go back to Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt at that age. Were they playing that much football? I don't think they were. I don't think they were playing that much football. But if they were playing that much football, maybe they could give us an insight into what that's like as a young player to be playing that much football. I don't think they were, though. I think Sir Alex was brilliant at nurturing players, and I think we lose sight of the age of these players and what we expect from them week in, week out. They are literally learning the game. And as a fan base, we should be learned in this ourselves. We should know what happened with Ronaldo from 19 to 22. What happened with Paul Scholes between that age, David Beckham between that age. And when you look at it, a lot of it is in out of the team, inconsistency, development, nurture, in bloody good teams as well. What have we got? Overplaying them in shit teams. Whereas we used to have these legends that were nurtured in brilliant teams and were in and out and looked after. It's something that doesn't get spoken about, and it surprises me because we've got ex-players from the class of 92 who are pundits who never talk about this, and they would be able to give the insight of what it was like to be a 20-year-old. I mean, I've probably got the stats on this, but I don't know whether I can do it. It's interesting. Just while I'm looking that, do I think Garnacho will go to Chelsea? No. I think Napoli is the place to go. Although I'm hearing Adeyemi might be going to Newcastle now, which would be preferable, I suppose. What's this here? Harold is put. This is going to be actually quite interesting. It might only be interesting to me, but you know, you look at the volume of games our youngsters play. So Paul Scholes is 50. It's 50 in November. So Paul Scholes is 50 in 92, 93, 94, 95, 94, 95. So if he was 50 in 2024, he was 20 in 94, 95. He played 17 Premier League games. 17 Premier League games and no substitute appearances, apparently, which is weird. No, that can't be right. They might not have the stats on that. Anyway, look, Paul Scholes at 20 played 17 Premier League games. At 21, he played 26. At 22, he played 24. He's not starting every game, is he? The development of our players is... I think there's something in that. I think we massively overplay our players. We massively overplay our young players. Anyway, teams don't fear us, you're right, and we're happy with bang average players coming in. When was the last time we bought a world-class player like Pogba? I think this is a great point by Chandler. I don't want to see... I think there's a big difference between buying a Sancho for £75 million or an Anthony for 80 million. What I'm saying is, or a Maguire for 80. There's a big difference between paying a big fee and getting world-class players. I look at Manchester United and I think that we lack top players. If you look at someone like Lisandro Martinez, who does he start for in the top 6? Does he start for Man City? No. Does he start for Liverpool? No. Does he start for Arsenal? No. Does he start for Newcastle? I'd like to think so. Does he start for Forest? I'd like to think so. But look, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, he doesn't start for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make him a bad player. Does he start for Brentford? I would have thought so. Does he start for Fulham? I would have thought so. But the point is, we don't want to be Fulham or Brentford, yet we're competing with Fulham and Brentford. We want to compete with Arsenal and Liverpool and Man City. How many of our players actually start for Liverpool, Arsenal or Man City? You're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to get 3. Now, we might have spent £300 million last summer or whatever, or £1 billion over the last 10 years. But what quality of player are we buying? There's nothing wrong with having Lisandro Martinez and Ugarte and De Ligt and Harry Maguire, and these players are good players, but they're our better players. That's the problem. How many players are good enough to start for Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool? You need to have 4. You need to have 4 straight away. You know, Arsenal have got 4 players that start for Man City. Man City have got 4 players that start for Arsenal, and Liverpool have got 4 players that start for both of them as well. We just don't have that level of quality in our squad at the moment. And you can talk about managers, you can talk about players, you can talk about squads, but ultimately you're only as good as the squad that you've got. And I look at it at the moment and I think there's a lot of players I like and there's a lot of players with potential, but there's not a lot of players that would start for Liverpool. In fact, I don't think that I can't think of a player that starts for Liverpool really anymore. People are shouting Ahmad, but really, where does Ahmad start for Liverpool? Because Salah is in his position. You could play him out of position. Of course you could. But, look, there's a few that can do it, but I don't think they're at that level yet. So you need time for some of these players because Ahmad will get better. I think Ugarte will get better. Hopefully De Ligt will get better. He's only been in the Premier League a few months. There's a few others as well. Of course there is. So there's a few players that can get better, but we definitely need to recruit some as well. Like we have to we need to have 2 or 3 players that are the envy of the league. Look, and people can say, well, you know, that's miles off, but Newcastle have got Anthony Gordon. There's a lot of clubs. Liverpool would love Anthony Gordon. So Spurs, have they got a player that people... Son? I mean, maybe he's getting a bit old now, but people... we need these... Just because we're not in the top 3 doesn't mean you shouldn't have 2 or 3 players that other clubs like. Isak at Newcastle as well. Good shout. Bruno starts. Does he? Base says Bruno would... Who's Bruno starting for? Please, pray tell me. Look, I like Bruno. But what Bruno are we talking about? The one that played last night. You think he starts for Liverpool? You think he starts for Arsenal? I don't think Bruno plays consistently enough to play for any of those teams. I think on his day he can do, but we ain't even top half, boss. Worry about that later, says Fuge. Bruno would start as base. Teams don't fear us, says Chandler, thank you. From the Busby Babes to the class of 92, the history of this club is like no other. And along came the Glazers and Sir Jim, who think it's a good idea to knock out down Old Trafford. Sad times. Yes, Silverbridge. I mean, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, something came out today, didn't it, about the stadium where they can renovate it up to 87,000 or they can knock it down and build 100,000. Look, I'm not falling out with anybody on a Friday night. We're here to discuss Man United and remember one of our greatest legends in Denis Law, who sadly passed tonight. So I'm not interested in, arguing or anything like that. But on the night that we lose another legend, I will always say this. You can't get it back when it's gone. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people like me that just want us to stay at Old Trafford. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that want to move. But I'm also pretty sure there's a lot of people who want to move who within a couple of years will go, I wish we hadn't done this. Because the shiny new toy won't be shiny new forever. And you'll miss what we are. That ground has been there since the Busby Babes and before. It should be a listed building, in my opinion. It's a place of historical relevance. I reckon they'll knock it down. I wouldn't be... Look, this is really speculative and conspiracy theory, but maybe the Glazers and Ineos had a chat about how these things can happen without fans protesting and going mad. And look, if the Glazers... What I'm trying to say is, if the Glazers had never sold part of the club to Ineos and tried to knock Old Trafford down, it would never happen. So why is it happening now? And I'm right. If the Glazers said we're knocking Old Trafford down and we're rebuilding a stadium, it would never have been allowed to happen. But now, because they've sold 28% to local lad Sir Jim, it's fine. Because we're so desperate to recreate the Busby Babes in the class of 92, that's why we tried to force it and overplay the youth, says Josh. Look at just how many young players Barcelona burn out, says Smoggy. They want to build a new stadium. Agree or disagree, we should be selling the naming rights for Old Trafford. Imagine the revenue that would generate, says Viking Krypton Warrior. Mate, one thing I will say is you raise a controversial point to raise money without selling players, and I'm not going to knock that. But we've spent over £1 billion in the last 10 years. Raising money isn't necessarily the problem. It's how you spend it. You get the naming rights to Old Trafford and earn £50 million. What if they buy a load of shit like Mason Mount? You've just given up Old Trafford for Mason Mount. And look, Mason Mount gets mentioned, but I'm bored of talking about Casemiro or Rashford or Luke Shaw. So you have to mix it up a little bit. And there are different reasons why people are a failure. Mason Mount is probably a lovely lad. When he's fit, I think he's a good player. But as a signing, he is a failure. 2 years in nearly, never plays, £55 million, 1 year left on his deal. It's been an absolute disaster so far. So that's what I mean. He is a bad signing. He's not a bad lad. He's not a bad player, but he's a bad signing. Same as Phil Jones. Not a bad lad, not a bad player, just couldn't stay fit. DP says, hi Mark, it's not football related, but my foster dad has just been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and I feel like crap, says DP. Well, I'm really sad to hear that, mate, and obviously thoughts are with you and your foster dad and family. But there's a fantastic community here, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of support from the chat, but also remember, like, it is an amazing community and you are part of it, and hopefully we can support and help you through that by just being there as a constant, as we always are. So sorry to hear that, mate. I hope Yoro's confidence isn't shattered after yesterday, says Marky. Mate, I ain't got a problem. I think the reaction to Yoro's performance yesterday, I'm actually quite proud of this fan base, because I've seen some crap performances like that, and the abuse that players get afterwards is incredible. I remember it happening to Chong. I've seen it happen to Garnacho. So, as a young foreign player, I'm very, very pleased that Yoro hasn't been subjected to abuse. I mean, look, rival fans have took the piss. I can deal with that. But I think in the main, our fan base has been incredible, because he was crap last night. There's no doubt about that at all. And I think that it's incredible, really, how how much people have given him support, because that's what Manchester United, that's what we need to be. We need to be realising that a teenage kid is going to have a bad game every now and again, and that's what it's all about. Sorry, I've just been sent something with this. Oh my God. Have you seen this tweet? Like this lad, right? I'm going to call this out because this is a night where we're having a conversation about Manchester United, and we're also remembering a legend of the club who I know because my granddad, who's no longer with us, educated me in Manchester United from being a very, very young kid. So our show tonight, thumbnail, is Hardball, and it was going to be about Garnacho and everything like that. And that was set up at 7 o'clock. So we heard about Denis Law, and I was like, well, I'm going to be talking about Denis Law. So let's put rest in peace Denis Law right at the front, because it's the most important thing we're going to be talking about. There is this account on social media who used to message me all the time, but is now obsessed with me. There are a few. And he's put a tweet out screenshotting our thumbnail, which says Hardball, Garnacho and Rashford, because that's what we were going to be talking about, and that's what we've spoken about the most. But it says rest in peace Denis Law at the very start of it, because I wanted to talk about that. And he's put fucking disgusting institution. And I'm somewhat confused, because the United stand has been going for 10 years, mate, and we talk about absolutely everything. Like, we've been to Munich, we've done, every year we talk about it. And if Denis Law dies, we're going to talk about it. But we're not going to talk about it for an hour, because we've said what needs to be said, and we move on, like life moves on. I don't know what's disgusting about putting rest in peace Denis Law in the chat to acknowledge the passing of a legend, and then talking about Manchester United like we do every single day. Somebody in the chat's just mentioned that their foster dad's got Parkinson's disease. Like, this is real life, mate. Grow up. You're obsessed. Whoever you are, I'll invite you onto the United stand tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Get in contact on your DMs. We'll get you on at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and you can tell me why we're a fucking stupid institution or whatever you said. I guarantee you won't do it, because you're hiding behind some account. God knows who you are. But if you've got the balls and you think it's a fucking disgusting institution, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, DM me off that account. I'll give you the link. You can come on and you can have your say. And I'll tell you what, bring some cushions, because I will sit you down. Hiding behind your picture of, what have you got? Amorim and Pep shaking hands? Oh, mate, you're an absolute twat. Absolute twat. Sorry, I will always defend this amazing community against people who try to stir up trouble when I know the good that this community does. I know what it does. That's what Ineos will have in their resume: selling the youth and destroying old Trafford. Final nail in the coffin for this club, destroying what makes United great. Rest in peace, Denis Law, true legend, says Hero. Oh, mate, you can't talk about Sir Jim and Sir Denis Law, apparently. You can't do that. Zane says, rest in peace, Denis Law. Love that. From an Arsenal fan, Zane. Love that. Mike JBA's gifted a few memberships tonight as well. Can we give a big shout out to him? Espen says, it's a sad day to have a birthday. Rest in peace, the king. Thank you for everything you do, says John. Thank you very much for that, John. Patrick Lynch says, the last of the Trinity feels like a lot of history slowly fading away. We can ask for change, but we shouldn't lose sight of who we are. All change is not progress. Thank you very much, Patrick. Bruno plays well for Portugal, and his legal would rise with a better squad. His legal based? I don't know what that is. Bruno wouldn't start for Liverpool, mate. You can't hypothetically say what he'd do if he was given the chance in another team. He can only go on form. Anthony Defo starts the lights in the toilets at the Carrington, says Mr. Cheetah. I know they're personal videos, but it would be good to see some of your grandfather's United tapes as a watch-along, says Brendan Raider. I don't think we have them videos anymore, mate. I haven't got a VHS. I don't know. Well, no, we probably have got them. I know where they would be, but I don't have a VHS tape. We ain't even top half. I don't even know if you can get them anymore. I know there was one, the story of Man United. There was another one, 101 great Man United goals. There was a George Best one as well. The story of 68. They're all on VHS. how many times I used to watch them when I got home from school. We ain't even top half boss done that one. Thank you very much for that. Let's have a quick talk about Marcus Rashford. I really don't want to, but you know, it is news. So, I mean, another week passes by, really, doesn't it? I mean, we are, the 17th of January, so we're definitely into the third week of the January transfer window. And I think it was in the first week that there was real escalation about Rashford and Milan and Juventus and Dortmund. So we're well over 2 weeks later from that now, and it's still going on, isn't it? So I said a few days ago that there's no reason why this couldn't go for another 2 weeks. There's still 2 weeks left in the window. It feels to me, and we're allowed to have an opinion, it feels to me like Rashford doesn't want to go to Milan and he's waiting for something else. And that's his prerogative. You know, you don't have to take the first option, do you? Going back to a night out, you might be on a night out, someone's there, you think that's quite attractive, but there's plenty of the night left, and look what's just walked in. I might come back later. And that's the same in many areas of life, isn't it? And to be honest with you, if I was Marcus Rashford and AC Milan wanted me, I would be flattered and I'd be happy with that. But if Barcelona came and sort of flirted with me, I'd be like, it's Barcelona. So I think that maybe that's what's going on there. The problem is, you've got to be very careful, because if you turn your back on AC Milan, they might ask someone else out, and then Barcelona might go, I'm not that interested. And then you turn back to AC Milan and you've missed out and you've got nothing. So you've got to be very careful of that. And hopefully, for everybody's sake, the team around Rashford is switched on enough to realise that don't be too... don't take too long, because you might end up with nothing. Now, Dortmund are back in as well, as we know. But I think ending up at Dortmund when you could have gone to Milan or Barcelona would be... You know, it's a little bit too Sancho, isn't it? And I don't see Dortmund getting to a Champions League final like Sancho did. So I think Rashford needs to be a little bit careful about what's going on. But honestly, I read a lot of things about the Rashford thing, and I don't take a massive amount of interest, because I think he will go, and I don't get the feeling that everybody really knows what's happening. And everybody is manoeuvring, isn't it, for their own sort of angle on this. He may well still end up at AC Milan. My only thing is that he hasn't played for a month, and what's that going to do for your sharpness? And there's not a lot of the season left when you think about it, 3 and a bit months. I want to learn more about the history of the club. Any good book recommendations, says Christian. There are so many. I mean, that book behind me, you won't be able to get it. It got discontinued, about Duncan Edwards. But there's so many. There's books on Denis Law. There's books on Matt Busby. There's books on the Busby Babes. There's the story of Man United. Like there's so many. I think what I would recommend is that you start from 55 and find a book that sort of covers each year up until probably, I wouldn't go past 2012, to be honest with you. And then you pick bits within that you want to deep dive in. So if you want to know more about the relegation year, there'll be books on that. If you want to know more about the Busby Babes, or Sir Matt Busby, or Denis Law, or Brian Robson. So I would look at reading the story. Look, there'll be something out there where you can get really good detail on the club's history, and I would go 55 to 2012, and then I'd take notes on the things that interest you the most, that you want to learn more about. But it's all captivating in its own way. City form due to Pep's divorce. Feel bad for him, says Jide. Okay. Rashford can't go abroad, Mark. He's not clever enough to integrate into a new culture, says Rack. Okay. Rafinha and Yamal start over him easy, says Guy Fawkes. Thank you very much to Christian. This has been a very humbling for Rashford, says Based. It's obvious that no club is seriously interested in him, and all the news it's from his camp pushing for a move. Imagine if he ended up staying. I mean, I think that's a horrible situation for absolutely everybody, if I'm being honest with you. So, yeah. So yeah, I think it does need to get resolved. On the positive, I can't remember. It's been such a weird day today, and as I say, the Denis Law story is fresh in everybody's heads. I hope that they put normally on the BBC, which is the UK British Broadcasting Corporation. Normally, when somebody passes, they'll do like a documentary for about an hour, and I'm really hoping they put something on about Denis Law tonight, because I just feel like, like Christian said, I just feel like, going and watching something about United and a great person and a legend, yeah. I know what I was going to say. I read something today, as I said, in a day that's been a bit all over the place. Xerxes is going to stay. Juventus made an inquiry before they got That was it. Juventus made an inquiry for Xerxes before they decided on Mawani, but Xerxes has decided to stay at Manchester United. I mean, this is good news. There's a lot of people really excited about Xerxes at the moment. He seems to have a bit of confidence about him. He reminds me a little bit of what he was like in the first couple of games, because remember he scored that goal against Fulham, and I think there was a real excitement around Xerxes, and then it just sort of disappeared for a few months. It seems to be back again, and it's good that he's committing his future to Manchester United. The only thing I would say is, and I've got to word this in a way that it doesn't sort of jinx it, the only thing I would say is that Fabrizio Romano said last week that his agent had been talking to Juventus for weeks. That needs to stop. If you're a Man United player and you've only been here 6 months, your agent should not be talking to teams in Italy. You shouldn't be unsettled. You shouldn't be unhappy. You should be focused and determined. We talk about personality. We buy talent, but we don't necessarily buy personality. Sancho was talented. Di Maria was talented. Sanchez was talented. But they weren't happy, they weren't settled, and that was the outcome. We need to recruit players that are hungry, the Agates, etc. Xerxes now needs to get his head down and be hungry for a Man United shirt. I don't know why the first 6 months went the way they did. I don't know why these talks happened with Italy. Who knows? Man United might have been part of it. I don't know. But it was ridiculous that in the first 6 months of being signed, every 2 weeks we're getting stories about Italy. So I'm glad Juventus has been rejected. Let's move on. Let's move on and let's get going as a football club, because we can't replace everybody. So if we can turn some of what we've got into players we need, this is good. Abdullah says, what's the book called behind you? You'll never get it, but it's called Duncan Edwards, The Full Report by Ian McCartney. It was my granddad's book, and it's basically... it's fantastic, actually. So this was my granddad's favourite player, and it was the player I sort of learnt about the first. So this book is basically, it's a story about Duncan Edwards, but it's a match report for every game he played in. So Portsmouth 0, Manchester United 0, First Division, 18th of December 1954. So in 1954 he would have been, bloody hell, 16. It's got a forward by Harry Gregg. He was born in 1936. So in 1954, he was 18. And it says Portsmouth 0, Manchester United 0. Not for the first time this season, it was the United half-back line that salvaged something from a game on this occasion. The game itself was scrappy, but given the poor playing conditions, the visiting defence coped well. And it's just every game he played in, and it's got a report on it as well. So, yeah. I'll cherish that. But I don't think you can get it anymore. There are books on Duncan Edwards, though, that you can get. Okay, right. Well, look, a sad show. Certainly a sad show, but I think that's the strength of this community, is that on nights like this, when you are feeling sad, at least we've been able to... it is available on Amazon used, says Alonso. There you go. At least we've been able to spend an hour together just talking and coming together as a community. TJ's just purchased it on Amazon. There you go. Well done. even though we won, I'm still furious about that game. I can't believe how we played. If it weren't for Onana's incredible half, and obviously Ahmad, when is Ineos going to properly back our manager, says John. And I'm super close with my grandfather. Your granddad seemed like a great guy and cherished those memories. He would be incredibly proud of you, mate, says Jinzo. I think he never saw me do this, and I think it. I don't know what he would have thought. Maybe he would have watched. Hopefully he still is. Brighton on Sunday. Very good point. There will be a preview. I've got a morning show tomorrow, and we'll put the preview out tomorrow afternoon. It's just been a very hectic day. It doesn't normally catch me out Thursday to Sunday, but it sort of caught me out. So there will be a preview, and we'll get that out tomorrow as well. There's a couple of videos I want to get out as well, but we'll see if we can get those out. Well, there's always next week, isn't there? You know. Apparently, Alphonso Davies is going to sign a 4-year deal with Bayern. Well, he was never coming to Man United. It was either going to be Real Madrid or Bayern, and I think there was rumours that he was going to stay at Bayern anyway. You're absolute legends. Thank you, everybody, for tonight. I can't thank you enough for tuning in, whether you're watching live or not. It's been really useful because I've got to be honest, on a personal note, when that dropped at 7:30, it just took me back to situations, and maybe, you know, I was very sad anyway, but it took me back to situations that sometimes you probably don't think about on a day-to-day basis, and it makes you miss those people. So it was nice to spend an hour talking with you lot about things that we're passionate about. So I appreciate that. You know, it's the original and GOAT community. That's what it is. Any watch-alongs tomorrow, says Gaz. I don't know. I know I'm not doing Arsenal Villa. No, I don't think I'm doing any. I'll do a few match reactions probably, but I've got a few things going on tomorrow. So Man United on Sunday. But no, 10 o'clock show tomorrow. We will be live for that, definitely. Thank you very much. Absolute legends. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And as I say, again, rest in peace, Denis Law. If you're looking for something to do tonight, go and read or watch stuff about Denis Law, because he'll never be forgotten. But we've lost another legend. Thanks, everyone. Take care.